Thank you, members. Let's be seated. And let us now invite the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, the Honorable Aubrey Norton, to make his contribution.
Mr. Speaker, permit me first of all to congratulate our members of Parliament on this side of the House. They have done an incredible job of critiquing this budget. They've also made significant proposals that should the government listen and become responsive, we should have a better budget. Mr. Speaker, it will be remiss of me if I do not respond to some of the things I heard here. For instance, the Honorable Member Gail Teixeira suggested in 1992, when they came to power, there were no proper houses, but I can recall seeing her in South Rheinveld in the 1980s. And those were complete housing schemes, not house lots. So she must know that it is totally untrue that Guyanese in that era lived in what she described. Mr. Speaker, we have a proud record of not giving house lots, but putting people in houses in communities. I can call from South Rheinveld, even Amelia's ward that the Vice President claimed he built. Vrymanzervin, Vryslus, we can name a whole plethora of housing schemes that were built in our time in government. Mr. Speaker, I listened to my friend, the Prime Minister, and an old quotation came back to me that says, the only thing worse than a liar is a liar that is also a hypocrite. Mr. Speaker, had I not known the Prime Minister personally, and know the fact that we came from the same community, I would have felt he was misled by his colleagues. But something is wrong with him. Did you recall him saying that there was a state-of-the-art hospital in Linden, and he went in that hospital as a child? He stopped being a child in 1982. The PPP came to power in 1992. What the Prime Minister did is to establish that there was a quality hospital in Linden long before the People's Progressive Party. Mr. Speaker, I believe members of Parliament should try and stick to the truth. I heard the Honorable Member Gail Teixeira talking about the growth rate in 1992. And then the Honorable Prime Minister quoted part of the McIntyre report, but he didn't deal with the part which suggested that the ERP had turned around the economy in Guyana. And when they came to power, there was 7% growth. The Honorable Member Ashni Kumar Singh will know that. I mean, he didn't inherit it, but he should know. Mr. Speaker, there are a number of things that worry me in this place. And the first seems to be, we cannot use history for positive purposes. But since you don't want to, Let me help you too. The Honorable Attorney General seems to want free and fair elections, which we have no problem with. But the best way to guarantee that in 2025 is to give us biometrics and a clean voters list. How do you come here, Mr. Speaker? How do you come here, Mr. Speaker, and argue that you want elections that are credible, but outside you're fighting biometrics and a clean voters list, which are two essential ingredients to have free and fair elections? I believe it's just mouthar. Mr. Speaker, this nation must be saying, thank God, this is the government's last budget. This budget puts wealth in the hands of the few, the PPP elites, families, friends, and favorites. And I don't like getting personal, but the Prime Minister must remember, if he's looking at his family, as he claims, he has a family that is living in terrible conditions in Linden. I won't say two, but he has a family that is living in terrible condition in Linden that he should have dealt with. I don't want to get too personal, but continue to be factual. This budget gives little or nothing to the small man. It is self-contradictory. The numbers are fudged. It hides the reality behind the use of percentages rather than actual figures. It is a slush fund and a recipe for waste and illegal enrichment. There is the poor allocation of resources, especially the over-focus on infrastructure at the expense of the development of our human resources and the working people of Guyana. More importantly, it is not guided by a well-thought-out vision. It is the lumping together of projects that do not constitute a national plan. Mr. Speaker, the next coalition government will reallocate the resources in a way to ensure its effective and efficient use. I want to remind you, in 2015, you were saying you're going to be over there till Jesus comes. And we got right over there. I want to remind you that it is the people that determine, and the people out there are fed up with this government. Mr. Speaker, we will put the people of the Guyana at the center of development in keeping with our people-centered development strategy. Mr. Speaker, we are cognizant that this cannot be done by the honorable members on the other side of the House, since their actions are guided by their Christian and surname, which are Core and Ruption, respectively. Mr. Speaker, this Core and Ruption family is destroying Guyana. You're slow, man, you're slow. Mr. Speaker, if you listen to those on the other side of the House, you will believe that the PPP existence in government began in 2020. They are eager to forget their failures. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, they compare 5 years of coalition government with 27 years of PPP mismanagement, discrimination, victimization, and the illegal accumulation of wealth by the PPP regime. Mr. Speaker, there's a lot of talk about what we inherited in 2015, and some of them speak as if growth was glorious. Let me remind you. In 2013, the economy grew by 3.7%. In 2014, the economy under the PPP grew by 3.9%. It declined to 0.7% in 2015. What that means is that we took over an economy in trouble. Growth under the PPP was extremely low. When we left office, Ashley, Honorable Member Ashley, tell them figures don't lie. Listen to the figures. When we left office, we were able to stabilize the economy, and the growth rate for 2019 was 5.4% without oil, higher than the PPP in the last 5 years. It was the coalition government that stabilized the failing economy it inherited. Mr. Speaker, figures do not lie. In 2020, oil resources began to flow, and therefore there are adequate resources for development. It is critical, therefore, that significant attention be paid to the non-oil sector, since it is the non-oil sector that is the future of Guyana and should be developed in a structured way. Mr. Speaker, if one accepts that the non-oil sector is an important gauge of how the economy is performing, then one would have expected significant growth in the non-oil sector. Unfortunately, this is not the case. Growth is very marginal amidst failure. The government seeks to obfuscate this reality by using percentages and hiding the role of the oil sector in producing the so-called growth in the non-sector oil. Mr. Speaker, the minister with responsibility for finance states that oil supply will surpass demand in 2025, leading to a 10.5 drop in oil prices, just to around $71 per barrel. Such a decline in oil has serious consequences for GDP growth in Guyana, since he noted that 2025 growth is expected to slow to 10.6% from 43.6% in 2024. Mr. Speaker, this decline should have signaled the government that to spend 95% of the income in the National Resource Fund is criminal, dangerous, and may have already placed us at risk due to the overdependence on oil and the lack of significant improvement in the non-oil sector. I turn to the non-oil sector. Sugar. You're accustomed for your tail being dealt with. Non-oil sector. Sugar. Key among the failures in the non-oil sector is sugar. Sugar is in rapid decline. It is minus 21.8% in 2024. And like the minister's figures suggest, it is a drain on the economy. This drain is a result of government's incompetence, among other things. The minister himself said, and I quote, "The average world price of sugar declined by 13.1% to US $0.45 in 2023. The minister understands that under the PPP, sugar has been in steady decline, but he hurdles to suggest that it will grow by 115% in 2025. This is wishful thinking and zombie economics. This makes no sense and must be a political joke leading up to general and regional elections. Mr. Speaker, the declining prices in the world market, incompetence and mismanagement of the industry's resources, there's a clear sign that the economics of sugar is getting worse. No child will buy the minister's laughable pronouncements on the sugar industry. the sugar industry cannot increase production by 115%. It is impossible. Mr. Speaker, as the next government, we will increase sugar production. We will manage Gaisuko effectively. We will diversify Gaisuko, restore it to sustainability, and ensure the workers receive a livable income and obtain the concomitant training. Mr. Speaker, we have developed a clear path for a successful Gaisuko by diversifying the agricultural product, appointing competent managers. I want to repeat this. Appointing competent managers, not appointing them and when they prove incompetent, you make them ambassador. Upgrading the skills of the existing workforce and creating alternative employment for people in the sugar belt as we right-size Gaisuko. Gold. History reveals that when gold price rises, production increases. The minister said that gold prices increased by 22.9%, but yet the sector only grew by 0.5%, which the minister unfortunately or deliberately described as record growth. This should have been a worrying sign for the minister, since gold price was high, and the actors in the gold sector were not incentivized to increase gold production. That is the issue. The next coalition government will engage the gold miners with the aim of including them in decision making and incentivizing them to increase production. Stone, sand, and construction. I have to reveal some of your tricks here, Minister. While stone declarations and sand extraction are estimated to grow by 80.4% and 48.5% respectively, this is clearly not driven by policies and programs developed by this government. It is driven by demand for construction activity linked to the development of the oil sector. The minister estimates that construction has grown by 30.8% in 2024. Mr. Speaker, what he did not say, if you listen, you will recognize it's not the housing program. You'll take lessons. Hold on. What he did not say was that these developments are a result of construction that is linked to the oil economy, not housing. This clearly should have not been categorized as non-oil development, since it is a function of development in the oil sector. Mr. Speaker, did he listening to you talking garbage? Did he listen? They were listening to you and calling savants. Mr. Speaker, had the minister done this decent thing and removed oil-related construction from the non-oil sector figures, economic growth in the non-oil sector would have fallen to single digits. Having included oil-related construction activity, the growth in the non-oil sector is inflated. He is a master of hiding the reality under fancy language, misuse percentages, and concealment in categories that they should have not been included in. The manufacturing sector. Mr. Speaker, again we see the attempt to conceal the reality vis-a-vis manufacturing. The minister contends that the manufacturing sector grew by 3.5% in 2024, with other manufacturing helping with an increase of 15.7%. When one looks beneath the surface, it is clear that this growth, and I quote the minister, was driven primarily by an expansion in the production of non-metallic products and fabricated metal, unquote. I hope that answers you, Edge. Since there is no other sector of the economy that needed such fabricated metals, it is clear that they were destined for the oil sector and therefore is only used to inflate the non-oil sector percentage in manufacturing. He himself acknowledged, Mr. Speaker, that, and I quote, a significant expansion in fabricating services amidst fabrication workshop being progressed in 2024 at Ridden Hoop Shore Base. So he told you where it is going. So don't tell us it's going to house construction. Mr. Speaker, this is a clear indication that these developments are not in the true sense non-oil sector development, but oil sector dependent development, which in the long term will not contribute directly to the development of the non-oil sector. The reality is the figures in the non-oil sector were fudged so that they could appear great. Mr. Speaker, the minister can fool himself, but the reality will face us as Guyanese. The reality will face us as Guyanese if we do not change course and ensure that we develop a non-oil sector that is independent of the oil sector to guarantee sustainable economic development into the future. That is the task. Mr. Speaker, as the next government, we will produce a non-oil sector development plan to ensure the development of a viable and sustainable non-oil sector that is not oil dependent. Mr. Speaker, agriculture, manufacturing, and new industries will be the base of the emergent new oil economy under the next government. I turn to agro-processing. Mr. Speaker, the minister in his budget commits the common sin of the PPP regime. He said that there were many achievements in agro-processing in the last 4 years. In this regard, he pointed out that 15 agro-processing facilities were established in 4 years, benefiting 104 agro-processors. 2, his own words, 1 packaging facility and 9 solar drying facilities were constructed and operationalized, while 190 farmers and agro-processors were trained. 3, 12 Guyana shop spaces to be added to create 93 such spaces across the country. And 4, Guyana 527.4 million was expended in 2024, and a further 800 million in budget is budgeted for 2025. Mr. Speaker, we welcome and will promote investment in agro-processing and will support agro-processing. We believe it's important for Guyana. Interestingly, however, Mr. Speaker, the minister does not tell us what are the products produced in the agro-processing sector. He does not tell us how many products were produced and their contribution to non-oil development. The minister failed to tell us what is the total value of those products produced in the agro-processing industry. We do not even know what amounts are sold to the Guyana shop that he speaks about and other institutions, and if they were exports. How much was exported and how much has been consumed locally? Mr. Speaker, the answer to these questions is the only way we will be able to judge the effectiveness of the program and its contribution to the non-oil sector. This budget tells us nothing, absolutely nothing about its contribution to the non-oil sector. The minister in response should answer these questions so that we can judge whether there is value for money allocated to agro-processing. For now, he is just throwing around projects and expenditure without telling us about output. Mr. Speaker, as the next government, we will invest far more resources in agro-processing and develop the mechanisms to assess its effectiveness as it relates to value for money. We believe, Mr. Speaker, that the expansion and development of agro-processing is critical to the development of the non-oil sector. Mr. Speaker, the major problem here is that billions are being spent with no means of reporting on the returns from these investments. Any proper economist will know that it is necessary to analyze the data to be able to determine if the nation's resources are being properly utilized. No such analysis is undertaken. The PPP has a history of investments that waste taxpayers' money. Be it the Skeldon Sugar Factory, the fiber optic cable, the poor infrastructure construction, and the regular waste of taxpayers' money in projects like Enmore packaging plant that does not contribute to the development of Guyana. Mr. Speaker, there is no evidence in the budget of significant improvement in the non-oil sector, and this is worrying. The reality is the government sought to conceal the truth by not providing the relevant data and using oil-dependent activities to appear to have had significant improvement in the non-oil sector. The government is hallucinating. The non-oil sector is not performing in a way that Guyanese can feel that the process of diversifying the Guyana economy is making progress. Mr. Speaker, I turn to power generation. Power generation is important for the advancement of Guyana, but it is laughable that minister offers to, quote, remove VAT on electricity generators, which will cost the government 200 million annually. Clearly, Mr. Speaker, this is signaling that the government will not be able to solve the electricity crisis by fixing power generation. That is what is manifest. After 2 power boats and significant financial investments, blackout is still the order of the day. Last night, I was in Easter Penitence and there was blackout. You could try to conceal this by talking how much money you spend. If you spend, you see, that is why you're nonsensical. I could have gone there after Parliament. It happens when you have an infinitesimal brain. Mr. Speaker, I have many times said that the figures produced in these budgets are questionable. In the estimates, the government places its indicators as they read. I want you to listen to this, you and the Prime Minister. In the estimates, the government places its indicators as they relate to power generation. It states, and I quote, that the proportion of population with reliable access to electricity was 99% in 2024, unquote, and will be 99% in 2025. If that is true, why then there is need for VAT to be removed on generators? It further states that the proportion of hinterland population with reliable access to electricity was 93% in 2024 and will be 99% in 2025. You're not only joking, you are dreaming. But in the same breath, you state only 93% of the hinterland population has reliable access to electricity, and even that is inflated. Guyanese do not have access to reliable electricity unless you're from the elite on the government side and you have generators and other backup mechanisms. The stark reality of Guyana is that there is little or no access to reliable electricity. If those school children be here, they'll laugh at y'all again. This is just another indication of the self-contradictory nature of the budget and its estimates and the use of data that are plugged from the skies. Mr. Speaker, every Guyanese knows that 99% of the people do not have access to reliable electricity. They know they are affected by blackouts, and no fudging of the numbers can change that. Or else last night when Honorable Member Indadi talking, he would have changed it and get current. In addition to that, Mr. Speaker, again it states in its indicators that the installed capacity of renewable energy, solar, hydro, and wind for off-the-grid areas in 2024 is 6.7% and will be 5.4%. This signals that there cannot be 99% of the Guyanese people accessing reliable electricity. It is important to note here that places like in the Pomeroon River, except for government buildings, the people have no access to reliable electricity. I have traveled the entire Pomeroon River, and the most you have is some government buildings that have. So I come to make the next point. You could call out how much generator, how much kilowatts. The reality is that there is no such. You, Mr. Prime Minister, hold a minute. You are contending that 99%, and hear you in your words, unserved areas will get electricity this year. How on earth? Which are the unserved area, the 1%? You can find places close to Georgetown that do not have electricity. So cut this nonsense out. Mr. Speaker, the minister said that he intends to strike an appropriate balance between short-term imperatives and long-term consideration. The present approach of the government is a clear indication that their sole focus is in spending out the money as fast as they could. Or could it be, Mr. Speaker, that they expect to be removed from government and are seeking to give the next government basket to fetch water? He cannot be talking about short and long-term balance when they change the law to be able to take out 95% of the revenue accrued from oil. This approach suggests that all that matters are short-term imperatives. At the current rate of depletion of funds from oil, there are little or no savings. There is little or no money to invest, and little or no money to cushion the ill effects of a decline in oil prices, which the minister himself states will decline to US $71 a barrel. Clearly, poor management. This is more serious when it is recognized that there is not concerted effort to develop the non-oil sector. With the present government approach, it will be years before significant funds will be available to invest so that we have funds to stabilize the economy and ensure prosperity for future generations. You on that side of the house are destroying the future of this nation. You are spending money as if it is yours. You are spending money without a proper plan. And we know you don't have a proper plan, because one time the president came right here and declared we will get $200,000 instantaneously. I know some people like my friend Kwame know what I mean. It ain't right away. And then another government official comes and says, "Ma, you know, I gotta wake you up, go back to sleep." Another government official comes and says it is going to take 5 months. They have no plan. Mr. Speaker, in the oil sector, As the next government, we will change the law to ensure oil resources are not plundered and misused, and that those resources are effectively managed and invested to transform the non-oil sector while ensuring we have funds saved for future generations and for bad times when oil price is low, as is now imminent. Mr. Speaker, we have made it very clear that we intend to engage ExxonMobil in keeping with Article 32(1) of the PSA to make changes with the aim of putting more resources in the hands of the people of Guyana. This budget does not put sufficient money in the hands of the people. It is our intention that our people should be the main beneficiaries of our oil resources. And I want to say to the Honorable Minister of Natural Resources, if it is one thing historically that the PNC was good at and continues to be good at, is an understanding of the English language and good choice of words to convey what we mean. We never at any stage said anything about renegotiation. All we did is promise that the people of Ghana will get more from oil. The poultry industry. Mr. Speaker, I am happy that it is stated in this budget there has been increased production of soya and corn. I say it's good. It's not a function of you. Why you are yes. Mr. Speaker, this measure could contribute significantly to the development of the poultry industry. Here was you now. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, the majority of the poultry farmers is small operators and are experiencing significant losses. Many of them have already been decimated by the inclusion body hepatitis. Honorable Member Jordan gave a full account of the problems small poultry farmers face. The government should come to their assistance to help them to surmount the challenges they are facing. High cost of living. Mr. Speaker, the government is denying the existence of the high cost of living. And if I'm lying, you can say you're not. And as a consequence, there are no measures in this budget, little or no measures in this budget to reduce the high cost of living. It was interesting as I watched the students in the parliament. When they were here, when Honorable Member Jordan was speaking, they were nodding their head in approval, as Mr. Viceroy Jordan outlined the prices for goods in Guyana, especially food. And it's not linked to them alone. Today, this is what was posted from Kako. Chicken, 900 to 1,000 a pound. Beef, $1,500 per pound. Eggs, $360 a tray. Fish, $1,200 to $1,500 per pound. Rice, sugar, flour, $450 a pound. Milk, $1,500. Oil, $1,500 per bottle. Gas for the engine and so $3,000 a gallon. Tomato, cabbages, etc. 1,000 per pound. Banana, $350 a pound. Packaged farine, 1,000. Cassava bread, 1,500 to 200. Mr. Speaker, that is the people who feel it speaking. Mr. Speaker, these people live it, so they know it. The government on the other side of this house, knows of living, but it's out of touch with the cost and reality. You are out of touch with the cost and reality. Mr. Speaker, I wish to remind this House that we previously offered measures to reduce the high cost of living. For example, We recommended the waiver of electricity charges for low-income individuals, the waiver of water charges for low-income individuals, grant to small farmers to increase production, immediate 35% salary increase for all public servants, the writing off of UG students' loan, and to give 50,000 per month to every student at the tertiary level, and the development of agriculture in every region to boost food production inter alia. We cannot be mouthing, Mr. Speaker, we cannot be mouthing food security when there are still many people and regions in Guyana that are not food secure. And I want to talk to the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, who went back to the things we banned. He had the year wrong. He said 1966. We restricted items in 1970, and we are proud of it. We were importing saltfish when saltfish could be made by taking fish, salt, and sun. May I say this to you? May I say this to you? May I say this to you? The people who sell saltfish, the people who sell saltfish at Luziknan, at Annandale, all of them are happy that we restricted saltfish so that a saltfish sector could have developed in Guyana and the people of Guyana benefit from it regardless of race. So don't tell us about food security. Don't tell us about food security. Your food on your table is secure, but not for the average man. Mr. Speaker, this budget does not have a social net to protect the poor and vulnerable. It does not even have protection for our children. Mr. Speaker, when we were in government, Mr. Speaker, I want Honorable Ramson to listen to this. When we were in government, we promoted early childhood development for our children. In this regard, Minister Singh stated in the budget that the government has completed 2 early childhood development centers in 5 years, one at Rose Hall and one at Bartica. Glad to hear that. Let's compare. This government should be ashamed that without oil money, they could only develop 2 such centers in comparison to the APNU AFC coalition that developed 6 such centers in Suddy, Dartmouth, Anna Katrina, Linden, Ansgrove, and Ithaca. Those are facts.
Correct. Without oil.
We did it without oil money. Some of the money that are going to waste in infrastructure could have been better spent to give our children a good start through more early childhood development centers, which will result in better for the children. As part of our people-centered development strategy, we will focus on early childhood development. Youth. Mr. Speaker, our youth is probably the most important human resource in our country. In government between 2015 and 2020, this National Assembly adopted our national youth policy, which placed significant focus on the development of youth, especially educational development, entrepreneurial development, leadership skills development, and ensuring that the child is nurtured from childhood to youth in a structured way. Youth development is not going with your head in the air at the ground and lording over people. It is about doing the things that are necessary for the development of youth. We will revisit our youth policy since the government has none. Update it and provide our youth with a clear pathway to development, especially in reducing their contact and conflict with the law and promoting their economic, political, and social empowerment. We will structure youth development programs to ensure we produce a society that is law-abiding and end the lawlessness that has characterized our youth over the years under this PPP regime. It is our youth that will have to be in the forefront of those changes. Mr. Speaker, we will put more resources into the National Insurance Scheme to improve its ability to offer benefits and social protection to the people of Guyana. Mr. Speaker, our social sector is badly managed. Its benefits are at the whims and fancies and caprices of the minister. As the next government, we will put in place objective criteria for people to access social service benefit. People should know and be able to predict their entitlement. Not turn up for them and say, now you can't get it, you can get it, you can't get it, you can get it. You don't run countries like that. Objective criteria. Mr. Speaker, as I am on NIS, the minister should tell this House how much money has accrued to NIS as a result of the 60,000 jobs you claim to have created. If you created those jobs, then NIS should have reflected an increase. Mr. Speaker, NIS is not experiencing an increase of revenue as a result of its so-called job creation. Or is it that most of these are temporary jobs, if they exist at all? Or is it that these workers and employers do not pay NIS? I wait this information from Minister Ashley Singh, the minister with responsibility for finance and sometimes platitudes. Mr. Speaker, this budget has a lot of piecemeal measures that purport to bring relief to the people of Guyana. 100,000 a baby born, another 100, and it's all over the place. Mr. Speaker, a lot of them will put resources in the hands of the wealthy, the owners of businesses. If this government genuinely wants to help the people of Guyana with the high cost of living crisis, it could have reduced VAT to 10% or 12%. Had it reduced it to 10 or 12%, it would have put 34 billion or 17 billion directly in the pocket of the Guyanese, which is far larger than the 9 billion in the budget for direct cost of living mitigation. Mr. Speaker, every person that goes to the shop pays VAT on virtually everything. And therefore, the best way to give them back money is to reduce. This will benefit and impact positively the average Guyanese in a direct way. It is sad that the government seems hell-bent on collecting large income from tax from the small man who pays PAYE rather than reducing VAT to bring direct relief to the people of Guyana. I urge you, Minister Ashley Singh, reconsider and bring it down to either 12 or 10. The people of Guyana will be grateful. As the next government, we will adjust VAT as is appropriate to bring direct relief to the people of Guyana. I turn to cash grants. Mr. Speaker, this government has been pressured by the opposition into delivering a cash grant program to the people of Guyana. And and I can substantiate it. When we first talked about cash grant, Vice President Barra Jagdo said it will fuel inflation. President Ali said the same thing. But as we continue to campaign and it became efficacious among Guyanese, you are compelled to give a cash grant. Mr. Speaker, the handling of the cash grant by the government is a manifestation of its incompetence, their love for illegalities, and the desire to dominate and control the people of Guyana. What is worse, the cash grant as presently structured cannot take people out of poverty. As the next government, our cash transfer policies and programs will be aimed at ensuring all Guyanese receive a livable income and to increase their ability to plan, purchase, save, and invest. Cash grant as you structure it cannot do that. Today you have it, tomorrow you don't. If Kwame feel like telling them give one, he come and say get them, get them. It has to be structured.
I'll get them something.
Mr. Speaker, we aim to give households no less than 100,000 in cash and other benefits per year. You are the patient. Housing. Mr. Speaker, the government has failed to recognize several realities in the housing sector. This is so because the government dislikes two critical things. The first is data, and the second is planning. It is obvious to anyone looking to rent in Georgetown that there has been a sharp increase in the typical rent in the city and its surrounding neighborhoods. Whereas only a few years ago, a one-bedroom apartment could be found for $35,000. Now many rent for no less than $100,000. This is testament to the demand for housing as well as a persistent shortage of supply. Many hard-working Guyanese families who cannot afford this rent have been displaced. If incomes were rising as quickly as rent, no one will be complaining that rent has begun to resemble developed countries' rates. For several years, the PP has neglected to carry out and publish the Guyana Labor Force Survey that could have tracked wage growth, which would have highlighted wage stagnation relative to rent prices. It would have been clear to the government that much more aggressive actions need to be taken to address this housing crisis. Mr. Speaker, this government does not like data. It likes guesswork. So rent prices have been allowed to grow and grow while income growth has withered. Further, Mr. Speaker, the consequence of this income stagnation is that many Guyanese cannot afford to build on their existing house lots when they do have them. And as we know, the waiting list is decades old. Inflation has caught up with, or in many cases, surpassed any minimal wage gains. This too has eroded the ability of Guyanese households to build. Unlike the government, we are well aware that a house lot is not a house. The government seems to equate allocation of house lots with housing of people. It is not. Mr. Speaker, we in the opposition are not afraid of data. We are not afraid to commission studies and to act in an informed way. We need to do this to know the needs of the people as we develop and implement our people-centered development strategy, which must be data-driven. One of the biggest problems of this government, little or nothing, is data-driven. We will immediately commission a study on Guyana's housing needs and incorporate those insights into our existing analysis. Similarly, we will, I want you to listen, Prime Minister. Similarly, we will at once begin a rent-to-own housing drive in which the government build houses on existing house lots and new lands for which citizens will pay rent to the government monthly. This rent will be paid until the cost of the house is recovered and the house will become the property of the tenant. If you used to read, you would know that there is house rent to own in this world. This approach of rent to own will ensure that they overcome the access to finance problem that so many clearly face, and it will swiftly increase our nation housing stock. Mr. Speaker, if as a government you are paying attention, you will see that many are given house lots, but they don't have the requisite capacity to go to the bank. And a rent-to-own scheme is aimed at helping poor people who do not have the requisite resources to go to the bank. In the process, Mr. Speaker, we will simultaneously generate thousands of jobs in this and other housing initiatives, benefiting citizens and our economy. No longer will citizens be forced to pay developed country rent without developed country salaries. Mr. Speaker, in addition, we will deliver rent subsidies to those who are still forced to live in rented house until they can be provided with their own house. Mr. Speaker, we know that the PPP has little interest in planning. It is no small wonder then that they have focused their housing efforts on the low-lying coast while mouthing about climate change and continue to place people on the low-lying coast. Mr. Speaker, we cannot afford to ignore the risks climate change poses, and we must strategically develop inland housing to mitigate these concerns. There are highlands all around Guyana that must be immediately utilized to develop large-scale housing schemes. Over time, tens of thousands of Guyanese can comfortably live in those communities. Mr. Speaker, this is not new to us. We on this side of the house are proud of our record of delivering houses in well-structured communities so that our people can live comfortably. Ask the people of South Rheinveld. Ask the people of Amelia's Ward. Ask the people of Scottburg in Corriverton. Ask the people of Rymanzervin. Ask them in Vreislas. They will tell you they move into houses built by us in community. Our government will focus on the development of new housing scheme. Our government will focus on the development of new housing scheme on the corridor along the Soesdijk-Linden Highway, Linden to Lethem, and others with highlands, while also building out the transportation infrastructure to support the movement of so many people. This government build roads, build this, but no attempt to deal with the transportation issue. We recognize that Guyana cannot rely on the one road in, one road out approach of Diamond and Tushen housing scheme, which have been a traffic disaster. And that the farther from Georgetown Guyanese work and live, the more comfortable they will be with structures community with the concomitant transportation. Mr. Speaker, to this end, we will ensure that the Soesdijk-Linden Highway resurfacing project is done to the highest standards and possibility of developing a rail network linking communities with both Georgetown to the north and Lethem to the south. In this regard, I endorse our Honorable Member Patterson's proposals. A mixed-use rail network, which is powered by our own natural gas reserves, show great promise, as both passengers and those transporting goods can benefit, while the cost of transportation will be slashed. This issue of the slashing of transportation costs was not addressed in this budget, that of lowering the cost of transportation. Our people-centered development strategy dictates that we seek to lower the cost of transportation in pursuance of giving Guyanese a high-quality life. Mr. Speaker, the establishment of these road networks will generate jobs in the agriculture sector, tourism, mining, logistics, forestry, construction industries, among others, boosting Guyana's economy while helping our nation mitigate climate change risks. This will also facilitate the transport of goods from Brazil for export, generating billions in revenue annually. This will contribute to our desire to develop new industries. It is time we develop robust infrastructure that links our country from one end to the other, and in government, we will lead the way on this front. Julie, we will, I know you don't like hearing this, but we will commission a study on the best way to approach this and build out such mixed-use transportation. Mr. Speaker, you know, there's a dislike over there for studies. And we will always be in trouble. You did Skeldon without proper studies. You did the fiber optic cable without proper studies. You don't learn your A's hard. You need feasibility and other studies. Mr. Speaker, I turn directly to infrastructure, where I turn to infrastructure. We in the opposition are clear. There is need for infrastructural development, but we are concerned that infrastructure development is undertaken within a narrow framework and not in the context of a wider vision for the development of infrastructure, while at the same time committing more significant resources to human resource development. Mr. Speaker, we welcome the work being done to pave roads in Guyana. We welcome. However, we are appalled at the poor quality work and the narrowing of some roads as if they are pavements. Only recently, residents of Tocqueville complained that their road was not only narrowed, but it is built without shoulders, and only one vehicle can pass at a time. Agile, is that development? It cannot be. Therefore, the complaint that the roads do not have a proper shoulders, thus resulting in damage to motor vehicles. This need to be rectified. I am not criticizing you, honorable member. I am merely bringing to your attention the concerns of many people in the village that you are from, Plaisance, right next door. You grew up, you know Clay Brick Road. They are complaining that previously 2 vehicles could pass on Clay Brick Road, on the road. Now they cannot. Do not see it as merely criticism. See it as an opportunity to rectify the problems you have. Mr. Speaker, the PPP government has consistently showed a lack of vision for Guyana's future. If we listen to the PPP boasts, it is all about how much money they spend. The measurement of successful governments is to equate progress with how much money is spent, with little regard for efficiency, illegal use of money, or waste. They are behaving like the money now available to us is because of their effective governance and prudent management of the economy. It is not. They are enjoying the good fortunes. You are enjoying the good fortunes of oil resources, and it is incumbent on you that you use them judiciously. This money is available because of an expanding oil sector that has delivered resources like never before. This money is available despite the PPP's poor leadership and widespread involvement in activities that are not legal, since I can't use the C word. The Guyanese people demand better stewardship of our resources. In contrast to the PPP visionless spending, the opposition vision is one of responsibility to future generations, present and future generations. We believe that effective management of our oil wealth has potential to deliver a transformational increase in the standard of living of the Guyanese people. This transformation will mirror the economic transformation seen in countries like Singapore and Malaysia. Our strategy will focus on reducing waste, eliminating the C word thing, and channeling resources into sustainable, high-impact projects that truly enhance our people's quality of life. Singapore is a good example for us. Before its transformative projects in 1960, Singapore had a GDP per capita of just 516 US dollars. However, by investing sensibly in infrastructure and efficient governance, it emerged as a global economic powerhouse, not bringing power ships that don't have power. Today, Singapore boasts a GDP per capita of over US $93,000. Today, the citizens of Singapore enjoy a high-quality life with access to excellent health care, education, and infrastructure. This is the kind of development we will pursue. Today, we take the United States for granted. However, it was the United States Interstate Highway System, established in 1956, that transformed America's economy and society. Before the construction of the interstate highway system, the US economy relied heavily on inefficient, disconnected roadways and railways. However, the interstate highway system enabled faster movement of goods and people. It reduced transportation costs and boosted productivity. The US economy has grown sixfold since the construction of those highways. The construction created millions of jobs directly and indirectly and stimulated industries such as steel, concrete, and automotive manufacturing. It transformed the economy of the United States. The highways bridged urban centers with rural areas, enabling regional trade, better access to services, and balanced development. Mr. Speaker, we in the opposition vision mirror the strategic foresight of those nations. By wisely managing our oil wealth and prioritizing transformative infrastructure projects, Guyana can achieve similar economic success and uplift generations of citizens. Guyana can replicate these successes with inter-regional highway network that connects all parts of the country, unlocking economic potential and transforming lives. As the next government, we recognize that infrastructure development directly correlates to the transformational improvement in the quality of life of the Guyanese people. Our approach to infrastructure will focus on three key pillars. One, expanding the road network. The PPP neglect has left Guyana with a 1990 road network. Since 1992, the PPP has in government for a total of 28 years, and the result has been little or no expansion of the road network. This cannot be allowed to continue. As the next government, we will build a comprehensive inter-regional highway system. This includes the construction of paved highways linking Linden to New Amsterdam, Linden to Lethem, and other key towns. Imagine goods from the hinterland farms moving seamlessly into urban markets within hours, thereby creating wealth, employment, and opportunity in every region. A coast to hinterland network collecting Bartica to Upper Mazaruni, Essequibo Coast to Cuyuni, and the Northwest District will be part of a IRH. Picture a vibrant economic corridor where hinterland communities are no longer geographically isolated, but are integrally connected to the national dynamic. We will bridge the Essequibo River at multiple points with connected roadway at, you laugh. Do you know? Let me say this to you. Honorable Prime Minister, there are not parts of the Essequibo River that are narrower than the Demerara River. We will bridge the Essequibo River at multiple points with connected roadways to improve connectivity. These bridges and roads will knit the country together like never before and transform the quality of life of residents. We will end this ad hoc approach of building roads that are not part of a well thought out national road network. Addressing the traffic congestion. Addressing traffic congestion. The coalition is aware that traffic congestion severely impacts productivity and the quality of life of Guyanese. Today, residents traveling from West Demerara along the East Bank Road and East Coast Demerara Road face long commutes because of inefficient traffic management systems. Even in Georgetown, there is a daily gridlock that impacts productivity and, quite frankly, happiness. Our current road infrastructure struggles to cope with the growing volume of vehicles. While Minister Ejil is boasting about the roads being built, none of them is structured to ease the gridlock, ensure free moving traffic, and opening new lands for economic development. The mere building of roads is not the solution. As the next government, which means you know we coming to government.
Correct.
As the next government, we will implement smart technologies such as radar systems, fisheye cameras, and intelligent traffic lights to optimize traffic flow and monitor road use in real time. This adaptive traffic signal technologies will significantly reduce congestion. It is true that a part of the problem in Georgetown is that there is a capacity problem. Mr. Speaker, you do not have any smart traffic light. If you had one, once a build-up occurred and one side was empty, the traffic light would let you go. You probably don't even know what you're talking about. All roads constructed in the future that will link to the current road network will be constructed to modern international standards for optimized traffic flow and safety. Mr. Speaker, as the government constructs the roads, they are creating directional conflicts, as is evident on the highway from Mandela Avenue to Diamond. We will solve this problem as much as possible, and as far as practical, we will have grade separation to avoid directional conflicts. Enhancing road safety. The current state of road safety in Guyana is dire, with frequent accidents, inadequate signage, and poorly maintained roads with many substandard design elements. Families live in fear of losing their loved ones to preventable crashes, while the PPP seem to have abdicated its responsibility to ensure our roads are safe. The PPP response to this problem is to blame everyone else. According to this, the crisis of our roads is caused by motorists, cyclists, and pedestrians. They accept no responsibility. And according to Minister Ben, reducing road deaths will require a change in culture, change in behavior, and a greater level of awareness among the population. We agree. There is need for such changes. But we worry when nothing is said about what the government must do to address contributing factors that fall within the sphere of responsibility. We will address them. We in the opposition believe that government has a responsibility to keep Guyanese safe. And very early in our term of government, let me repeat, very early in our term of government, we will commission a comprehensive review of traffic accident statistics so as to review key causes such as speeding, driver inattention, DUI, pedestrian conflict, and intersection crashes as we identify the trends. We will audit major highways like the Suzdai Clinton Highway, Quarantine Highway, West Demerara Roads, and the East Coast Demerara Road to identify substandard design elements such as poor surfaces, unsafe turns, inadequate sight distance, and proximity of fixed objects to the traveling lane. We will use audit results to direct target funding for safety improvements. We also understand that improved infrastructure ensures roads meet high standard. It's not just the money you spend, it is the quality of the roads. Roads being built at present do not meet such standards, and anybody coming down the so-called Heroes Highway, you know, long ago, them little what, let's buy, them little what, long ago, I mean, in you days, you know what y'all would do? If your girlfriend get pregnant, drive them on the road, sure abortion. We will have a road safety element built into our infrastructure development program. This is badly lacking in the present ad hoc road construction. We will also have sustained education campaigns on safety driving and awareness when using the roads. We will launch year-round public awareness programs on safe driving and road use. We clearly have to eliminate the corruption as it relates to obtaining driver's license. We will focus on changing behaviors of drivers, pedestrians, and motorcyclists through education. To this end, we will create a dedicated road safety agency for traffic management and road safety. It will focus on data collection. It will focus on data collection, audits, education, and coordination with law enforcement. This agency will work with engineers and traffic management professionals to develop and implement a comprehensive road safety plan. Our highways will open vast areas for agriculture, housing, and manufacturing, creating new economic opportunities in hinterland communities. Benefits will include wealth creation, moving beyond handouts to foster local enterprise and self-sufficiency, thriving communities where farmers and artisans benefit from direct market access. Hinterland farmers will have easier access to urban markets, boosting incomes and reducing post-harvest loss. Better roads will unlock ecotourism opportunities, making heritage sites and nature parks more accessible to visitors. Our infrastructure development plan will be based on this song vision for infrastructure. Our infrastructure vision is grounded in responsibility, sustainability, and transformative impact. By building interregional highways, addressing power supply issues, creating wealth in hinterland communities, and ensuring transparency, we will deliver a high quality of life for all Guyanese. With a strategic and visionary approach, Guyana will be positioned as a model of development and prosperity in the Caribbean. Disaster risk reduction and management. Mr. Speaker, as we are a low-lying coastal country, more emphasis needs to be placed on disaster risk reduction and management. There is need for an all-of-government approach with all the various ministries, departments, agencies, and local government organs involved to build resilience across the country. Mr. Speaker, this all-of-government approach will reduce risk and reduce the impacts from emergencies and disasters. As the next government, we will place disaster risk reduction and disaster risk management under a ministry with authority to table bills and represent its budget in this parliament. The profile of disaster risk reduction in disaster risk management needs to be raised. At present, it comes over as an insignificant institution in Guyana under the purview of the Prime Minister. With the advent of the oil and gas industry, I want to repeat this for you. With the advent of the oil and gas sector, more attention needs to be paid to this area. Human resource development. Mr. Speaker, human resource development is one of the most critical elements of economic development. And therefore, we are surprised that in percentage terms, the allocation to education continues to decline. This is what you do then. We need to have a survey. It's an old one, but it is true. We need to have a survey of the jobs available and likely in the future to be able to align our training with demand. Clearly, goal is not the solution. We demand that more resources be allocated to the University of Guyana so that it become the leading institution of human resource development in Guyana at the tertiary level. Mr. Speaker, at the tertiary level, many senior, local, and regional educators have expressed deep concern that the GOAL project has been unable to produce the requisite results. The awardees must have been the creme de la creme of students, for 378 of them to have received PhDs in 3 years. Unbelievable. PhD getting away from the highest level here. While a few of these universities are credible, there are question marks over many of them. And I urge you to relook at this program. As the next government, we will focus on training human resources we have in the best institutions in the world to ensure that we produce quality professionals that can contribute to the development of Guyana. We will significantly improve technical and vocational education to ensure it is aligned with the demand for skills as dictated by the Guyana economy. Livable income. Mr. Speaker, this budget fails to deliver a livable income to the people of Guyana. We will deliver a livable income since we are aware that at present most people live from paycheck to paycheck, and that if we are to get improved performance and production, we need to pay people well, ensure good working conditions, the existence of adequate social security and proper health and other services. Mr. Speaker, our measures will be aimed at training high-quality persons, retaining them, and providing them with a high quality of life based on high-paying jobs. The present state of our health facilities, water, our schools, and general working conditions must be improved considerably. It is only if we improve the quality of life of our people, Guyana will progress. Security. Mr. Speaker, our aim is to ensure that Guyana is a safe place to live. In this regard, the training, reorientation, and development of the Guyana Police Force capacity to prevent and solve crimes are critical areas that we will act upon. We will reintroduce professionalism to the Guyana Police Force and allow it to operate as an independent institution in keeping with its motto of service and protection to the people of Guyana. We cannot afford a police force that is politicized and embroiled in all forms of illegalities, popularly known as run-ins, and the C word that has been banned from this honorable house. Reimagine and reinventing government. Mr. Speaker, considering the widespread public rejection and disappointment in this budget, I wish to present to the House and to the nation how as the next government we will reimagine and reinvent government for the benefit of the people. I know that some of what I reveal will subsequently end up in the president's speeches or in the PPP's election manifesto. But we on this side of the House are obligated to let the Guyanese people know that under a more capable government, they can live better lives, and our country can be one of the best places to live in. In any case, Guyanese now understand more than ever before, from the cash grant payout fiasco, that what matters is not who speaks about the ideas, but who can effectively implement it. So those on the other side are free to jot down points. Mr. Speaker, while I was coming, I got a note from a village called Masakanari, a remote YY village in the deep south. It has been registered. They say it has not been registered for the 100K cash grant. No one has either visited or written the village providing any information regarding the cash grant to this niche, this community. The core idea of government is to serve the people as the reason for its existence. This is the foundation of the social contract between those who govern and the rest of the citizens. The PPP government has so violated and contorted this contract that it believes citizens must be obligated, subservient, and indebted to them. Even worse, the PPP believes its mode of operation must be through control and domination. Not unexpectedly, we therefore have a government today rife with arrogance, incompetence, self-deception, self-absorption, indifference to the plight of ordinary people. Equally, not unexpectedly, the Guyanese people today feel hopeless when they should have been feeling hopeful. We as the next government will give government back to the people. We'll ensure that government ministers, ministries, and agencies respond to the needs, concerns, complaints, demands, and aspirations of the people with competence, respect, promptness, fairness, and effectiveness. As a government, we will give substance to a proper government's moral obligation to ensure citizens live a decent and comfortable life, and to ensure they can enjoy the full range of human, political, social, and economic rights. To achieve this, we will reimagine and reinvent government. What are some of the specifics? What are some of the specifics? We will use our people-centered development strategy as our guiding philosophy. Mr. Speaker, we remain fully committed to this approach as more and more citizens embrace our ideas and proposals. As one plank of our people-centered vision, we will eliminate poverty and raise the quality of life as a national priority. As another plank, we will establish a comprehensive social protection system based on three core principles. One, social protection is an inalienable right of every citizen. Two, no Guyanese must be deprived of the basic necessities of decent life, irrespective of any unfortunate circumstance. And three, social protection must provide a life cycle guarantee from the womb to the tomb. Mr. Speaker, as part of our reinvention plan, we will establish new ministries and government agencies or reshape them to better deliver on our people-centered development goals. Possibilities for new ministries include a Ministry of Women, Children, and Family, whose mandate will be to ensure that comprehensive policies are designed, implemented, and monitored to ensure no effort is spared in guaranteeing women, children, and families can live their best lives. Another possible ministry is the Ministry of Public Safety, which will oversee and coordinate our government's effort at natural disaster prevention, preparedness, road safety, health security, climate resilience, and anticipating and preventing other potential threats to the public. Mr. Speaker, under this heading, we will most definitely have to recreate the Ministry of Social Services into a high-performance entity to oversee massive expenditure on social protection and cost of living relief. The ministry will be professionalized and guided by a multi-year strategic plan, since none currently exists. Going further, We will expand the mandate of the Ministry of Tourism to assume responsibility for building image and brand internationally. The more must see Guyana in all its positive light. In this regard, Mr. Speaker, we will consider seriously returning the Guyana Airways Corporation to serve both domestically and internationally. It's a sad thing. It is a sad thing to remember that, you know, you talk about all the developments, you don't tell anybody Guyana Airways Corporation was destroyed by the People's Progressive Party. In another effort in our plan to reimagine and reinvent government, we will be employing a whole of government approach for critical national issues, such as indigenous welfare, national security, and climate resilience. On the indigenous issues, for example, our whole of governmental approach will see the creation of a cross-ministry task force chaired by the Minister of Indigenous Affairs, on which the NTCs, indigenous NGOs, and other stakeholders and experts will have seats. Such an approach will ensure we implement a critical mass of coordinated programs aimed at overcoming the key hindrances to the development of indigenous people, families, and communities. Mr. Speaker, we say here, and we will do it. 2,000 councillors should be paid no less than $200,000 a month. We will
Honorable the
also.
opposition, we may need to start winding down.
You need my what?
We've had almost.
Could I wind up like how the Prime Minister did it? I only have a couple of pages more. We will also embed it.
I've been very generous with an extra half an hour so far. He had only half an hour total.
Okay, I can summarize, don't worry. Mr. Speaker, we will reimagine government. We will take transparency and accountability to new heights. Mr. Speaker, over the last 4 years, the government has shown no real interest and urgency in data collection and analysis to identify and evaluate problems, measure policy performance, and guide decision making. The PPP fears facing the facts as much as it does revealing the truth. We have not, for example, seen a quarterly labor force survey since late 2021. The Bureau of Statistics has received increased allocations, but has not delivered an improvement in the quality and quantity of its work. I don't want to blame them, but until now, we have not seen the census. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to facilitating public consultation on major issues, when last or whenever has this government produced a green paper on its policy intentions? For those who may not know, a green paper is a document published by a government containing information about a possible new law or policy with the intention of starting a public discussion and collecting input from the wider society. You're not likely to know what it is. We as the next government will facilitate public consultation through regular publication of green papers and the hosting of public forums. Mr. Speaker, we believe, Mr. Speaker, that this budget will not serve the people of Guyana. We believe that this budget is a hodgepodge of projects and an avenue for money that what existed before Jordan. Mr. Speaker, we on this side of the House are deeply concerned that this government continues to talk about the amount of cars on the road, the amount of buildings they build, as if that is development. We will pursue genuine development in which the people of Guyana are involved, in which resources are meeting our people, and we are improving the quality of life of the Guyanese people. It is unacceptable for the money we have at our disposal for we to be hearing about malnourished children, for we to be hearing of poverty. The time has come for a change. Every time I listen to speakers in this house, more and more, I'm convinced that if Guyana is to grow, the PPP must go. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, there is potential in Guyana. The only thing is missing is a competent government. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Leader of the Opposition. Just being congratulated by the Honorable Barjagio. And now, to close the debate, the Honorable Minister, Senior Minister in the Office of the President, with responsibility for finance.